darkness peering. Long I stood there, wondering, fearing.
Growing up, I absolutely hated being home. At night it always sounded like someone's walking around, and there were whispers from my closet whenever it was left open. I always made sure it was closed, but most mornings it would be partially open. I would refuse to go into the basement, even during the day, and you could never escape the feeling of someone or something watching you. I'm talking full-on blankets over the head, nose poking out type of childhood. One night in the summer, we had a powerful thunderstorm roll through. I remember it vividly because the lightning was near constant, and instead of white and blue, the colors were more purple and green. The storm took out the power. My father asked me to go to the kitchen and help get the candles and flashlights. I was walking down the dark hallway when something jumped out from the bathroom. The kitchen door was 5 feet behind it. Thinking it was my dad trying to scare me, I laughed and said, "Nice try." There was a loud growl, and my father put his hand on my shoulder from behind me. He pulled me back into the living room, closed and locked the door, while saying that it wasn't him, and he saw it too. The growling continued from the kitchen entryway for a good 10 minutes, and it sounded like something was pacing the hallway. Dad and I spent the night in the living room. We didn't sleep. We just watched the door. We moved a few months later. The house we moved to felt good. It had no issues with feeling watched or hearing things. Felt like I could sleep without the blankets over my head. Years later, when my father was diagnosed with cancer, we started watching the ghost shows on cable. That got us talking about that night and what we saw. It was then my father revealed that the house I grew up in was an old, renovated funeral home. The way the house was renovated, my closet was the mechanical room for the lift to bring the bodies from the basement embalming room to the viewing room on the first floor. Our floor was the funeral director's private living space. My father's aunt actually owned the house and lived on the first floor, which was the floor where they would have the viewings and such. The house has changed hands to cousins of mine. Talking with them, they said they had similar experiences, scratching on the wall, footsteps, banging on the basement bulkhead, and lights that would come on dimly, as if they were connected in series, rather than each light being its own circuit. They even told me they won't go into the basement alone because the stairs go down past a walk-in storage room with no lights, and they swore they hear breathing or growling when they went past. They have since moved from that house also. A few folks wanted to know if I had any more experiences growing up in what I would later find out was an old funeral home. Why yes I do. We lived there for 13 years, 1977 to 1990. It wasn't until after the incident during the storm in 1990 that my father decided it was time to move. I made note of every experience we had, individually and as a family, in a journal. I'll go room by room. Every room in common. Cold spots, odd smells were common throughout the house. We attributed that to the old steam radiator heaters. Scratching on walls at night. No rats or vermin. No insect activity or plumbing issues. Dad was a maintenance foreman. He checked everything out. Also of note, there are no trees close enough to the house. You always felt like you were being watched. None of my friends ever stayed over or wanted to come inside the house. They always said the house creeped them out. Now, onto the experiences by specific room. Entryway. The interior door of the entryway was wood with glass panes. This opened to a stairwell that leads down to the main floor. The entryway door was always locked at night. The door had an old hook and latch style door closure with a thumb button to operate it. It was very secure, but on many occasions my father would find the door slightly open or completely open when he got up. Sometimes, if it was early enough in the night, you could hear the click from the latch. The hallway runner would always be bunched up, even though the door cleared it easily. Bathroom. This is the room that the thing jumped out into the hallway during the storm. You never entered the bathroom in the dark. Almost the entire back of the door was covered by a mirror. Anyone closing the bathroom door always covered the mirror because it never felt right. You could see shadows move in the reflection, but not when you turned to see behind you. We couldn't take the mirror down as it had been basically painted into place. The thought of busting the mirror always made you feel nauseous and sick. The kitchen. Cabinets would open and close. The bell for the toaster would ding at odd times, even if the toaster was off or unplugged. Dining room. The main light over the table would turn on dimly red at odd times. The bulb was a bright white incandescent. At night, you could hear the old push-button switch get pushed because the click was so loud. Pantry. This room always skeeved me out. The room was like a walk-in closet for dry goods and the like. As soon as you entered, you felt like bugs were crawling all over you. But there was never a bug in sight. No spiders, nothing. Also, you made your selection quickly because you also always felt like something was going to drop on you from above. Very unsettling. Sun porch / sunroom. For Christmas one year, my father got me a Fonzie from Happy Days pinball machine. It was kept unplugged when not in use. On a few occasions, you could hear the chunk of the flippers, or the sound of a ball rolling down the game field. Dad thought the game was malfunctioning, but it wasn't. There was also an electronic bowling lane. The ball would roll around the room at night sometimes, and the game played music if you got a strike, right of the Valkyries. The music would sound at odd times, and off speed. This is also where the attic access was. Attic. Now, the cool thing about the attic was that the former funeral director had a full bar and billiard table in the attic, along with a spare guest room. How he got that stuff up there is a mystery because the attic entryway was super narrow. Oddly, the attic was calm. I remember a wood carving just past the door that depicted Ireland, and etched into the wood was Erin, Ireland. Protect those that cross this threshold. That's basically what it said. My grandfather could read Gaelic and translated the meaning. When we moved, we took the wood carving with us, with permission. I'm only the third generation in the family who wasn't born in Ireland. My dad hung it on the front door of our new house. April 1986. It's morning and I couldn't be happier. Last night was scary. I woke up and it was still very dark. I heard scratching from my closet. I got up and turned on my room light to make sure my hamster didn't escape. She didn't. She is still in her cage. I checked the closet and it was closed. Turned off the light and went back to bed. I tried to get back to sleep, but I kept hearing noises. It sounded like my closet latch. I think it was being lifted up. I heard it click. After the latch clicked, it felt like something was in the room with me. I felt like I was being watched. I covered my head with my blankets. I heard something moving in my room. My hamster was quiet. She wasn't running in her wheel tonight, or biting her water dispenser. I thought something might have harmed her, but she's okay. I hoped my mum or dad would be checking my window, but it's not summer and the windows are closed. The sound was in my room and moving around. It was near my toy box, not my window. My toy box is at the foot of my bed. I heard a G.I. Joe fall over. I'm not alone. My dad woke up to get ready for work, so that means it was 4. He always farts or sneezes first thing. That's how I know it's him in the hallway. I'm alone in my room now. I was able to sleep once I heard Dad moving in the house. I told my dad when he got home from work what happened in the night and early hours of the morning. Dad opened my closet to show me it was just stuff. It was very cold in the closet. He thinks I might have dreamed it. Mum does too. Could I have? No. My closet door was not latched and slightly open this morning. Even now with the sun up, and as I'm writing this, something is watching me from the closet. I know I closed it before bedtime. There's also a rip in my Transformer sleeping bag at my feet. End of entry. May 1986. Early evening. I helped my dad cut the grass today. After that, we had to put away the tools and equipment. Unfortunately, these have to go back into the basement. I really hate the basement. It doesn't feel right, which means I get goosebumps. It smelled stuffy and heavy, like moss and very old pennies. I was helping to put away the grass catcher when Dad asked me if I saw something move along the tool wall. I think he was trying to tease me because I was really jumpy about being so far into the basement. What I didn't want to tell him was that I did see something move along that wall. It moved to the corner, then moved up the wall, and then it was gone. The worst part of the basement was the storage area by the stairs. It's really dark and there's no light to turn on. I won't go in there, ever. I won't even shine a light in that room, because I have nightmares about that creepy room sometimes. And in them, the floor is blood-stained. I also believe that whatever has been up to my closet at night comes up from this storage room of the basement. I stay as far away from the opening as possible, because also in my nightmares, there is something in there that will pull me in if I get too close. We finish putting all the tools away, and my dad always has me go before him, because the old wooden stairs are loose. We make it out of the basement, and my dad padlocks the door. We share a key with Aunt G and Uncle J. We usually run into Uncle J after cutting the grass. He's a nice guy, and likes to make models. He's always warned me about going into the basement alone. I always took him seriously. Dad would say that Uncle J was trying to spook me. Anyway, I'm excited because Mum is making casserole for dinner tonight. Late evening. Mum asked me to help make the casserole, and asked me to get the mac and cheese and soup from the pantry. I don't like the pantry either. It reminds me too much of my closet. I really want the casserole, so I go into the pantry and try and pull the light cord, but I couldn't find it. I think something touched my hand and I jumped back quick and closed the pantry door. I'm trying to calm down when my mum says, "It's just my imagination." I tried again and found the light cord. The light goes on and I gather the stuff. I think it's odd that I can smell the basement in the pantry. And just then, along the back of the pantry wall, I see a large grey pile of what I think are worms, wiggling like the night crawlers I helped Dad get for fishing. I drop the stuff to the floor and step back. My mother comes over and I point, and my mother must have seen it too because she let out a gasp and chucked the soup can at it. She then closed the door and called for my dad. Mum said she thinks she saw a squirrel or something in the pantry. Dad had a look. No squirrel. Also no hole in the wall. No nothing. I helped my mum make the casserole. We both kept an eye on the pantry door while cooking. Mum told me that maybe we were both having imaginary issues. Late evening. As I'm writing this, I'm in my bedroom, burping casserole. I'm a bit worried about tonight, as I was in the basement today and it likely saw me. I know what that means for tonight. May 1986. Next morning. I woke up and it was morning. I guess helping Dad cut the lawn and that must have helped me sleep through the night. I hear my parents talking in the kitchen. Mum was asking Dad if he could figure out why all the kitchen cabinets were wide open. I heard them talking about maybe the house settling, or maybe I didn't close them tight after helping with dinner cleanup. At the close them tight part, I looked over at my closet, which was again partially open, and the hairs on my arm stood up. I jumped at the sound of 3 knocks on my bedroom door. I looked over expecting to see one or both of my parents, but no one was there. I then heard 3 knocks from the closet door, and I bolted from my bed, kicked, the closet door closed, and I went right to my parents, knowing I couldn't explain that I made sure the closets, and my closet for that matter, were closed. End entry. June 1986. Afternoon. My parents got me the D&D Red Box. I'm really excited because I got a chance to play in summer camp last year, and it was really fun. My therapist said I needed something to focus my imagination on, to give me an outlet. I'm not sure why I need a wall plug, but he's a doctor. My cousin, 3 years younger than me, is coming over today for the weekend. I will let him know about what goes on at night here. No one seems to believe me when I tell them the things that I have seen, except my Uncle Jay. Evening, my room. My cousin will be here until Sunday. We spent a bunch of time reading the D&D rulebooks. My cousin wanted to tell scary stories. I told him if we are unlucky we will be in one, and I explained what I had been seeing lately. He laughed it off, but requested we use a nightlight. Night, my room. My parents had gone to bed and my cousin and I had just finished going over the rulebooks, colouring in the dice numbers, and trying to make our first characters. We lost track of time and soon discovered that it was almost 1:15 in the morning. We decided it was time to turn in. I checked the closet. It was closed and latched. We had sleeping bags on the floor, Transformers for me, a Spider-Man for the cuz. We continued to goof off a bit when the room got very cold, like a window got opened. Just as my cousin went brr, we both heard a loud click. We both peered over the top of the bed and saw the closet was no longer closed completely. We also noticed the nightlight was getting dimmer and the room darker. Suddenly the room went pitch black as the nightlight went completely out. There are 2 large windows in my room, but there was not even any moonlight coming in. When the nightlight came back on, the closet was more open, and we both saw something dark in the corner near to a window. The nightlight went out again. The room got dark except for the moonlight coming in the window this time. The moonlight was broken by what looked like a set of 3-fingered hands reaching into it. Grabbing our sleeping bags, we ran to the living room, clicked on all the lights, and camped as close as we could to my parents' room. My hamster's cage was moved to the dining room because I told my parents that maybe that was the noise I would hear at night, and that's what was waking me up. She had been in her exercise wheel when my cousin and I ran from my room. I remember hearing the sound of her running the tube to get to her nest area. Then the house was silent. Silent until my dad tripped over my cousin. He was about to chew us out for making noise so late, or early. But a door slammed in my room, and he went to check it out. We camped out in the living room. When my dad came back, he said he will fix the closet latch and that we shouldn't be reading monster books up so late at night, sliding the red box to me. Oddly enough, he said, we will spend the rest of the weekend at my grandmother's house. My cousin vowed to never spend the night at my house again. June 1986. Entryway. Dad brought me home after spending the weekend with my grandparents. It was honestly the best night's sleep I've had in a long time. Quiet, calm, and smelled like Grandma's cooking. As we got closer to home, just seeing it, I feel sick to my stomach. On entering, I actually stopped and dropped my overnight bag. The house felt different. Before I left with my cousin, it felt spooky and frightening. But now, the only thing I can feel is just seething anger. July 1986. General observation. I'm out of therapy. No more journal. Oh, I was keeping the journal going for something else though. I'm feeling better about myself and more self-confident. Meeting weekly in school for a D&D club transferred to meeting as a group of friends during summer vacation to play. I can honestly admit that I'm finally feeling more like a kid, or should I say teenager, as even I have noticed I'm becoming a bit more observant of girls. At least when I'm outside the house. It's now late July and summer. Long hot nights of little sleep. Everyone is always upset and angry at home. We need a few days of rain to cool the house and temp us down, or something was going to give. Night. My room. It's hot and sticky, and none of the fans are helping. Dad was working on fixing the AC for the living room, but he's retired for the night after watching the 11 o'clock news. Our neighbours are outside. I can hear them talking and smell whatever they are cooking. I'm just waiting for exhaustion to take me. Early morning, my room. Something hit me in the night. It felt like a punch, and I awoke with my face and chest hurting. In the glow of the alarm clock, it showed me that it was 3:07 a.m. I got out of bed and flipped on my room light. My eyes immediately looked to the closet, and to my surprise, it was latched and closed. I noticed that my hands have blood on them, and there's blood on my chest. I headed for the bathroom. Night, approximately 3:15 a.m. Bathroom. Light on, I close the door and look at the damage in the medicine cabinet mirror. Split lip, dark mark around the side of my mouth. The busted lip was where the blood came from. There are 3 marks on my chest, as big around as a quarter. They hurt. I'm sure there will be bruises by tomorrow afternoon, as will my face. For some reason I got angry at my reflection. It felt like every bad thought or negative feeling I've had about myself came back 10 times over, and all at once. In disgust with seeing myself, and how I was feeling, I opened the cabinet so I don't have to see my reflection. The cabinet mirror is now facing the mirror, behind the door. I start to notice a small movement in the reflections of the mirrors in the door mirror. I caused an infinity reflection due to the mirrors reflecting each other. This meant there were multiple reflections of me. Now at my limit, I angrily tossed a towel that happened to land on the robe hook. The towel covered the mirror, and I could feel the pressure in the room subside considerably. I gathered myself, went through a few of the coping techniques I learned, finished cleaning myself up, and then exited the bathroom. For some reason, before turning the light to the bathroom off, I looked to the kitchen. The door leading to the sunroom and the back stairs was fully open. I shut the bathroom lights off, but there was still a glow from the room across from me. Dining room. The lights over the table are on, but not on. They are glowing dimly, even though we don't have dimmers in the house. I'm still angry from the feeling in the bathroom, and I couldn't stop myself from saying what was on my mind. Go to hell. The lights faded out, but I felt watched still. Suddenly my father is there, and I about jump out of my skin. He asked me what I was doing up. He flipped the light on and saw me. Thinking that I may have been harming myself, he's checking out the marks and swollen lip. He's being loud when asking me what I did. Loud enough to wake my mother. That angry feeling flooded the room again, and the lights once again glowed dim. My dad looked at them with a puzzled "how the hell" look, just as my mum entered the dining room. I again almost jumped out of my skin as my 100-pound 5'2" mother lunged at my 6', 325-pound father, howling at my dad to leave him alone and don't touch him. I hit the lights for the dining room, which came on full brilliance, and I see my mother has her hands along the side of my father's face, her fingernails digging into the back of his ears with blood running down his neck. My father has a grip on her shoulders. I forced myself between them and split them apart, telling my mother that Dad didn't do this, and explaining what happened. I asked them if they couldn't feel something wasn't right in the house. This seemed to have cleared their minds. Dad and Mum talk. Mum doesn't know what came over her, and was just in full mama bear mode. Dad cleaned the blood off his neck, then we all talked. This time it seemed my parents might be grasping that something else might be at work here. Dad went to check the door to the back stairs. He said it was not wide open, but it was mostly closed and unlatched. The afternoon of the day after the fight, my parents have worked things out. My father spoke with Uncle Jay and he decided that we needed a vacation, and we packed up some things and took off for New Hampshire for 5 days. End entry. Note from OP. This creeped me out as I had completely forgotten about this. I remembered my parents fighting one day, but not why. I didn't remember being physically injured. If I hadn't noted this before, my dad was a big dude. What I would not find out till after his death was that he was a Vietnam veteran. He didn't talk about it at all with us, but it did explain a lot about his behavior. Slept in short shifts, would go on long drives for himself in the night. It's amazing my father restrained himself so well, or this could have ended very badly. Or perhaps that's what this thing wanted to happen. Fifth entry about my house. Information from my father in 2013. So I have now reached the point where, as an adult, I started talking to my dad about all the crazy things that happened to us when I was growing up. I'll provide that information as applicable. My age when talking to my dad, 40. My age for this entry, 14 going on 15. It was at this point my dad revealed that the house was a funeral home before being purchased and renovated into a multi-family house. According to my father, the activity started when I was very young, only a toddler. It happened one evening after one of my aunt's friends felt something about the house and wanted to have, and then did hold, a seance. Then the feeling in the house changed from just creepy to horrific, because my aunt realized the seance must have been the reason that the house had activity. Unfortunately, she doubled down on the issue by having that same friend come in to do a cleansing. They didn't know what they were doing, just enacted something they had read in a book, according to Dad, and likely did it wrong and just riled everything up. My dad believed that moving was the best option for us, as nothing seemed to follow you once you left the house. To that end, my parents were trying to save for a down payment on the house, but we had a string of health issues that would undercut the savings. Examples will be coming up. My father believed that they, Mum and himself, were not in control of their emotions for my fourth entry. When we went on vacation, everything went back to normal between my parents and I. Also, while on vacation, my uncle had the house blessed by a priest. This priest was a friend and kin to my uncle, same Irish clan, and this is what seemed to have dialed everything down for a while, about 2 years. That changed in July 1988. July 1988, afternoon, outside the house. Hello again, my journal, it's been a while. Things have been quiet at home, creepy but quiet. I have returned to you today because I was helping my aunt and uncle load food up for our family barbecue. While carrying the trays of food, I noticed movement in the basement window. My mum and dad were outside loading our car. My uncle was behind me, and my aunt will not enter the basement. What I witnessed was approximately level with the basement window, which would make it about 6 foot tall, about my height now. It had a human-like shape, head and shoulders. Its head moved quickly side to side.
Seen it too, didn't you, lad?
I think so.
It's been biding its time, looking for a way out.
Yes, what is it?
Our clan called them Daemhan, and they're not natural. They find and feed on fear, anger and sorrow. They sow these emotions like crops, then harvest the field.
Well, Journal, looks like I won't be sleeping the rest of my time here. Parents are saving for a new house. Night, returning home from the barbecue. We have returned home to something completely unexpected. Several police officers are on the front porch. The police talk to my uncle and my dad. My dad comes over to us and tells my mother to take me and go to my grandmother's. Dad tells us that apparently the kid broke in and damaged the place, and they're checking for missing property. We head to my grandmother's for the night. Morning, grandmother's house. Dad returned around mid-morning. He tells us that we will likely have to stay here for a while. Nothing was taken, but there is damage and blood in the house. A neighbor called the cops when she noticed a broken window. My dad then goes into what happened to the best of everyone's knowledge. Someone shattered the basement window along the side of the house near the oil ports. I had such a bad feeling because that was the window I saw my uncle's Daemhan in. My dad continued. They apparently cut themselves on the glass. It looks like they slipped into the basement through the broken window, got a pry bar from the tool wall, and pried the basement door open. The cops found a locked padlock on the floor by the door. Then, they damaged and destroyed the doors to open up the first floor, and then proceeded to damage or destroy the interior doors on our floor, except the attic door and our living room doors. Mum asked my dad what he thought would have happened if we had been home. The colour left my father's face, and his words chilled me. I don't know. End entry. August 1998, afternoon. It took us a few weeks, but my dad and I helped my uncle get the doors repaired. On our floor, the bathroom door was undamaged. All the other doors had been hacked into by a pry bar. My uncle was a bit skittish with working in the house, as it sometimes got things riled up. We finished in relative peace. Being that it was still early in the afternoon, the three of us took the tools down to the toolboard. As we passed the step-off for the storage room, the temperature radiating from the room was at least 20 degrees colder. My glasses instantly fogged over and I almost fell into the storage room. My uncle caught me and pulled me back. We quickly gathered the tools I dropped, my uncle talking quietly under his breath.
Do not look into the room, lad. Seek not the Daemhan.
We got the tools over to the board, only to discover all the tools are on the floor. We quickly get the tools back on the board, but the three of us can hear booted footsteps behind us by the basement stairs. My uncle decided to use the auxiliary stairs that brings us up a narrow stairway to the first floor, into what I always thought was a closet, but it was actually a stairwell into his living room. As we locked the door, something pounded on it 3 times. We ran to the main basement door, pulled it closed, and clapped the padlock on it. This door also gets pounded on 3 times. We backed away as the door rattled against the frame, then stopped. I had a quick word with my uncle. I thought it was gone.
No, lad. Dormant, maybe.
We all went upstairs to wait in our living room. My uncle for my aunt who was out with friends, and my father and I for my mother who was working late. The phone rang, making everyone jump. I went and answered to hear my mother state she was just leaving work. So I let my dad know. My uncle looking out the living room window, saw my aunt get dropped off and left to meet her. Half an hour later, my mother arrived home and I went down to the main entryway to help her with her belongings. This was something I always did because my mother worked so late before the weekend. As I meet my mother at the door, before I could even greet her properly, my mother exclaimed, "What is that?" looking past my shoulder. And that is when something hit me from behind, launching me outside into my mother, sending her backwards and down the outside stairs. Note from 2020 OP. Now at the time I was 15, I was eye to eye with my father at 6'11", and 200 pounds give or take a cheeseburger or 3. I played a lot of football and hockey. I knew how to take a hit, even when I didn't see it coming. My mum, 5'3" and then 115 pounds if that. Quick math. Mass times acceleration equals the first class ticket for my mum aboard the pain train. The aftermath. ER trip for my mother and I. I get 2 bruised ribs, a bruised back, and a dislocated left shoulder. My mother, 4 bruised ribs, sprained wrist, fractured arm, and a sprained ankle. The damage, while not as severe as it could have been, all but wiped out the savings my parents had for moving. The official story was I slipped on a non-existent throw rug at the bottom of the stairs and caused the wipeout. Back at home recovering, I asked my mother what she saw. She took out a Celtic cross necklace, a gift from my grandfather, that I rarely see her wearing, the knotwork on it forming the cross itself, and she held it in her hand and said only one word: darkness. December 1988. I recovered faster than my mother from the September experience. But with the holidays coming, everyone is feeling a bit better. Our family tradition is to start decorating for Christmas after Thanksgiving. This means Mum gets to break out her carols on vinyl, and the Sears system belts out Bing, Nat King Cole, the Three Tenors, and the like. I help my uncle decorate outside, plastic toy soldiers, giant plastic candles, big bulb string lights, and a big plastic Santa that gets put up on the ledge outside our living room window. We secured it to the ledge and make sure that there is no tension on the cords. The house, however, is still creepy. We can hear footsteps in the night, banging on doors and occasionally walls, and we all had this uneasy feeling with the bathroom mirror to the point we permanently hung a thick cloth over it. But no big activities in September, and Christmas is typically a safe time of the year. Christmas Eve. My uncle always has a huge party, lots of laughing, singing, drinking, lots of Irish prayers answered. This was the same my uncle used to like, when the bottle of Irish rye was empty and an unopened one magically appeared to replace it. Now traditionally, my uncle will announce that he thinks he hears reindeer bells, which gets the kids wanting to go home and officially ends the party. This year, however, it was a younger cousin who shouted, "I hear Santa's footsteps," about 2 hours before the party was set to end. Sure enough, there are loud footsteps overhead, when all of a sudden the room breaks out in peals of young children screaming, as right out the large front window, Santa swung back and forth, extension cord wrapped around his plastic neck. My father and I bolt upstairs because we know the plastic Santa was right out front of our living room window on a large overhang. I reach the stairwell door, and to my surprise the door is closed and locked. I get out my key and open it as my dad gets to the landing. I'd honestly expected it to be open. Inside, all the lights in the house are off, including our Christmas lights. I grab the flashlight that's on the kitchen counter near the door and shine the light down the hallway. The bathroom, pantry, living room, and parents' bedroom doors are closed, and the hallway runner is pulled back to the living room door. We go down the hallway and open the door to the living room. It takes a moment for my father and I to register what we see. The living room window is wide open. The plastic Santa is gone, but the window plastic sheet is intact, and still sealed to the window frame. We tear the plastic off, pull the Santa back up, and secure it back in place. We close, lock, and Dad gets the plastic to seal the window once again. There was no wind and no ice. Dad finishes applying the plastic sheet and tells me to go get my mother's hairdryer from her dresser top so he can seal up the plastic. I get the hairdryer, and as I return to my father, I forget about the hallway runner. It tangles around my feet and I fall. As I'm on the floor, I think I see someone in the light of the door frame to the stairwell. But when I pull myself up, no one is there. I give the hairdryer to my father, and about 10 minutes later, we have the window sealed up. The stairwell doors bang once, and then we hear another door bang, and assume it's the basement. We go around and discover the Christmas lights unplugged, which we most definitely know they were not when we left. We return to the party. No one seems to have noticed anything. I explain to my uncle in private what happened. Family starts filtering out and the party ends. My father slips me a swig of rye, to which I cough, sputter, gulp, but do keep down, and my mother returns from midnight mass. We retire upstairs. The change in the house is like entering the eye of a storm. It's suddenly calm and peaceful, but you know it's only temporary. February 1989. Things have changed in the house again, and not for the better. After the new year, I've noticed my dad staying awake longer, late into the night. He had always been a light sleeper, and usually got home from work and power napped till my mum got home. But he always went to bed between 10 and 10:30, and up for work at 3:30. But now I'm hearing him up and it's just after midnight. The weird thing is I've seen him standing in the middle of the dining room, staring into my room. I've also seen him in the middle of the hallway, looking into the kitchen. One night he was in the middle of my room, looking at me. I tried to talk to him, but he just wouldn't respond. Just shook his head slowly, no. He snapped out of it later and just went to bed. I've tried talking to him about it, and he said he doesn't remember. March 1989. Dad's still doing that standing in the rooms thing. I'm getting worried. Mum doesn't remember him getting up, so I'm thinking he's not going to bed. Sunday night I found him in the kitchen. He had something in his hand. I could tell from the light from the window. It was metal. I backed off to my room. I heard him drop something into the sink before going to bed. In the morning, I discovered it was a kitchen knife. I made sure to move the knife block off the counter and into one of the other cabinets after that. Late March 1989. Tonight, about 7, Dad fell asleep on the couch and was having a bad dream. He kept muttering that, "They are coming, they are coming, they are here." He started tossing and turning. I tried to wake him up. As I did, his hand shot up and grabbed me by the throat. His hand felt like ice. Pounding on his forearm was like punching concrete. His other hand was right in my face, index finger curled as if holding something. His finger flexed and he snapped out of it, pulled me into a hug and apologized. Dad never showed open affection and never apologized. I asked what was going on, and he said he would tell me one day, but not today. Mum will be home soon. Tonight is her late night. I moved the knife block to the pan cabinet again. April 1989. My dad just woke up from a nap, sweating and having trouble breathing. He was complaining about something inside him and that it hurt and that he needs help. Mum took him to the emergency room. The house is eerily quiet, literally and figuratively. Hours pass when my mother calls. She's crying. She tells me my father had a heart attack. She's staying with him. My grandfather's coming to take me to see him. We arrived at the hospital and rushed to my father's room. A priest was leaving the room, obviously, saying a blessing and seeing us. He started to say words that are obviously meant to comfort, but I just wanted to reach my dad. Dad was in his room, awake, but in some pain and discomfort. Tubes and wires everywhere. He was going to be headed to surgery for a procedure to clear a blockage. There was some danger involved, but it was less risky than doing nothing at all. They wheeled him from the room. Mum's a wreck. We all waited together. The surgeon informed us that the procedure was successful, but that they still needed to evaluate the damage to his heart, but at least he is out of immediate danger for now. Dad spent 8 days in the hospital. A couple of weeks more on home rest. It appears that our carefree days of large, extra cheese, onion and pepperoni pizzas will be at an end. No more standing in the room. He goes to bed around 9:30 now. Mum is going to church again. I'm just glad to have my dad, even if it cost us the savings for moving out to our own house. It is still quiet, but I can help but think, was the house doing this to keep us here? I hate this house. Additional notes. My father never told me what he was dreaming about. It's likely this fell into the category of things he didn't want me to know what he did. My guess is it had to do with his army experience. He started watching the show Tour of Duty almost religiously. It was after his passing that I learned he was a Vietnam vet. Whatever he did in service, it obviously stayed with him. June 1989. I really don't know what's going on with the house. Dad's recovered well. We go fly fishing on the weekends with one or both of my grandfathers. Mum goes out with friends or visits my grandmother's. Basically, we try to be home the least amount as possible. Mum said something tried to push her down the stairs after she got to the top. She caught the handrail and didn't fall, but had a gnarly bruise on her shoulder. This kind of freaked her out, as seeing how it hasn't been a long time since I was a human wrecking ball. We, Dad, uncle and paternal grandfather, have been working in the attic and have included me. We are now building it into an attic Irish pub. Something is not happy about the pub. We have to use the back stairs to get to the attic. Every time we carry bags up the split, plastic tote handles snap and the cold radiating from the basement door is so strong you can sometimes see your breath. My uncle and grandfather are great woodworkers, and the pub is coming along nicely. My father has been teaching me billiards, 8-ball and 9-ball, and we are learning snooker together, despite not having a 12-foot snooker table. My grandfather brought over a handmade plaque that reads Sullivan's Pub. It has Celtic knots around the border. My grandfather explains to everyone in his thick brogue. Listen here, lads. Pa got some old magic from home. This here means, may Erin, Ireland, protect those that cross his threshold. He hung the plaque just over the door. The attic was where we would watch sports, shoot pool, and become a place where the clans came together. It was finished July 4th, 1989. July 1989. We are starting to hear animal noises. All kinds of animals. Then, there are scratches. Deep scratches being left in the floor and walls near the attic door. The scratches are always in groups of 3s. The wall has been pounded on at night. My closet is once again creaking open despite the hook and eye lock on it. Now I'm also seeing something walking past my door in the early morning hours, and it's huge. It blocks out the streetlights from the living room window. There's also a smell to it, again like wet moss and old copper pennies. There are scratches on the inside of my closet door and walls. Also, I'm seeing eyes outside my window. These could be the old barn owl, but it's never sat looking into my window at night before. My friends don't come over anymore. They say even just standing on the porch makes them feel unsafe. One even went so far as to say he felt like something bad was going to happen. End entry. August 1989. Saturday morning. Hot, humid. My mum left for a trip with her sisters. She's headed north, where it's a lot cooler. Lucky. So it's just Dad and I for the weekend. We have a day of fly fishing, playing pool and watching old movies together, and generally trying to avoid the sun. Fishing was good. We caught a ton of sunfish. Eventually, it just got too hot to be out in the sun, so we packed it in and headed off for home. Afternoon. By this time, we had to be pushing 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so damn hot out. My uncle has installed an old AC window unit for the pub. It's good enough to take the humidity and some of the heat out of the open room. Dad planned ahead and got a case of Yacht Club soda for me, and naturally my uncle got some Irish ale. We listened to the Gaelic tunes and played some pool. Now, the attic pub has become an oasis in a sea of bizarre events. Nothing happens in the attic. Outside the attic is another story. Entering the attic, the door will bang as if someone wants to get in. The finish on the door will be scratched. The walls will pound. Around the door started to smell at first like wet moss and body pennies. Then it got real bad, like rotting food and body odor. After shooting pool and hanging out with my uncle, we headed down to our floor. On entering, we hear this high-pitched beeping. We find that it's my father's weather alert receiver. He turned the volume up. National Weather Service. Severe thunderstorm watch issued. Tornado watch issued for this afternoon and into the early morning hours. This is a new one for me. We do not get tornado watches issued often. Once every couple of years or so if there is a hurricane. I will let my uncle know to stay tuned to TV or radio. The storm. Nightfall. Dad and I had spent the better part of the evening watching old movies. We could see the flashes of lightning off in the distance outside the living room window. It was almost like a strobe light. Dad flipped the TV over to a local station just in time to catch them interrupting the program to let us know that we are now under a severe thunderstorm warning. Vivid lightning, hail, and the possibility of a tornado. Now we both realize how this could go bad. If a tornado did form, we would have to head into the basement at night during a storm, knowing what it was like down there. Now we could hear the thunder rolling, and the flashes of lightning were brighter. We turned the living room AC off and opened the window a bit. My father believed that the open windows helped to equalize some of the air pressure in the event of a tornado. He said he learned that in the army. What it did do was let the outside air in, and you could smell the ozone from the charge in the air. Sure enough, the next flash strobed the house white, like blinking your eye rapidly. Count. Make 5 Mississippi and boom, thunder. Next lightning strobe lit the house up green, and I happened to have been glancing towards my room. I saw that my closet door was wide open. My father asked me if I saw green when the lightning flashed. Before I could say anything to my dad, the room lit up purple. Still looking into my room, the door was shut. Another purple flash and 4 Mississippi. Boom. More lightning, green and purple, and a huge boom. I saw my closet door fly open. The doorknob had to be embedded in the drywall. Green lightning flashed. Count 2 Mississippi. I'm writing this the following morning, in the safety of the daylight. I never want to go through what happened last night again. I'm hoping my memory is accurate. I'm sure this will haunt my dreams for years. I remember the sudden absence of electronic sound as the power cut out, the crack of thunder indicative of a ground strike, black punctuated by flashes of green and purple, constantly rolling thunder. Dad asks me to get the extra candles and flashlight from the stash in the kitchen, while he gets Mum's candles from their hope chest. I remember leaving the living room and going into the hallway, close to my parents' room. The lightning is flashing and the thunder is so loud. They are both nearly constant. The heart of the storm must have been just about over us. The winds picked up and started howling like a pack of wolves. I could see into the kitchen. The door to the back stairs was wide open. It was locked. I know it was locked because I locked it. Then something stepped out of the bathroom. Not funny, Dad. What was in front of me was as big as my dad. As the lightning flashed, I saw it move to its full height. The hallway was at least 8 foot high and 4 feet wide. And this thing took up most of it, as I couldn't see past it into the kitchen. This entity was bigger and wider than my father, and suddenly, a hand was on my shoulder pulling me back. That's not me, boy. Words I hope to forget from my father. I cannot look away as my father tries to pull me back. The entity's black. Even in the lightning, it's as black as can be. It had arms, long and thick, ending in hands that it touched both side walls of the hallway. These hands appeared to be what I can only describe as hawk-like talons. It had a massive head, and the lightning would reflect back from 3 points, one higher and centered, the other 2 about where you expect eyes. It tilted its head like a dog hearing a high-pitched sound, and then started to move its head side to side, till it was moving it like a blur, and only the color of the lightning flashes reflected. It started to move at us. My father pulled me back hard, and we were just about at the end of the hallway. Shit! A peal of thunder mixed with every kind of animal cry you could think of tore down the hallway. The entity gouged the wall near the pantry door. When it howled, the area under its eyes got even darker. My father flung me into the living room, stepped inside and closed the door behind him. We lit my mother's candles she had in the living room. The light cast shadows on the walls. These shadows moved differently than the flickering of the flames, like they scurried under the door and away from the light. The lightning flashed, the thunder boomed, the wind howled. The thing in the hallway slammed the closed door. My father moved to shut the door between the living room and the dining room. The living room was closed off. Dad opened the window. We would jump if we had to. Each door pounded, dining room, then hallway, and the shadows would creep under the door, only to shrink when the candlelight touched the door. My dad took down an antique wood-framed polished silver mirror from the wall and put it behind the candles, reflecting the candlelight on the doors. The animal sounds continued and got louder. Something walked up and down the hallway. A thunderous crash from outside as a huge part of an oak tree came down. Lightning flashed, still that odd green and purple color. The storm raged for a while longer. It felt like hours, but we didn't have power. The storm passed. The smell of wet grass and broken wood replaced the ozone smell. All became quiet in the house, except for the dripping of water. End entry. August 1989, after the storm. OP note, we did not have a tornado. What we had is referred to now as a microburst, a localized downward blast of high-speed wind, no rotation. As I write this, I'm honestly thankful for making it through that storm and the night. First off, Mum is okay. No storms up her way. She'll be home later after learning about the storm damage. As to the storm damage, the winds brought down a good part of the old oak tree in the backyard. It hit the AC window unit in the attic and tore the windows and frame out. We salvaged what we could from the attic, notably my grandfather's plaque, but a lot of the woodworking that was done was lost to rain, wind and hail. On our floor, the ceilings are damaged from the rain that got into the attic when the AC unit tested gravity and lost. They will need to be replaced. In my room, the closet was opened so forcefully that the hinges are partially out of the frame, and the doorknob is indeed embedded into the drywall. I can't be positive, but I think I hear a faint whisper from the permanently open closet.
Come.
I tried using my mother's boombox to record on cassette, but I think it's too soft. The hallway was slashed down the drywall. 3 furrows, dug about 3/4 of the way through. Whatever did it, well, I know what did it, was sharp and likely could have palmed my entire head with no difficulty. The living room door and frame was badly damaged. The hallway runner got sucked down the hallway and ended up in the sunroom. From the sunroom we could see damage to other houses. There was a swing set in the backyard. We don't own a swing set. The garden was crushed. Afternoon. My uncle came upstairs, and I swear he looked older than he did last night. After making sure everyone was okay, my uncle looked at the hallway walls.
It was here, wasn't it?
My uncle asked us, and we could only nod our heads.
Come on, lads.
He motioned us to follow him, and we did. Down the back stairs to the first floor. Oddly, the stairs were wet from the water that came from the attic. The door to his living area was pushed in, wood splinters everywhere. The basement door was crushed outward. The door to the backyard was wide open. Another large branch from the oak tree came down apparently. A neighbor's cat was sitting in the yard sunning herself. I had always given her some food or water when I saw her, so she came to let me know that she was hungry. When she got near the basement door, there was an odd animal sound from the dark basement that was followed by the same breathy whisper from my closet.
Come down.
This time I'm positive I could hear a whispered voice. The cat must have heard it too because it crouched down, side to the door, back arched, and she hissed and spit before running off. The hairs on our arms are standing on end as we continued to hear the whisper of,
Come see.
from the dark open basement. I heard it. I know I did. And with their eyes moving back and forth, I could tell that my dad and my uncle heard it too. My uncle regained himself and explained that something... He paused, hearing a whisper of the word,
Me.
Something appeared to him and my aunt in their kitchen. My aunt thought it was an animal enraged by the storm. We heard more animal noises from the basement. A growl was my guess. My uncle continued as he mentioned how my aunt bolted from their living room. My uncle told us how the entity moved from their kitchen to the stairwell, and he heard what sounded like hooves going up the stairs. My uncle came upstairs to see what damage would be covered by insurance and what damage would not, before heading out to get lumber and plaster. Evening. We boarded up my closet door, and we helped my uncle board up the attic window. It felt violated in the attic after all the joy and hard work was lost. To make matters worse, the whispering could be heard as we put the last screw into the plywood.
See you.
Later that evening when my mother returned, Dad and I agreed we don't want to tell Mum about the entity. Dad talked with my mother and decided to pick up extra shifts on the weekend, and Mum would start working on Saturdays in a new pilot program to have banks open on the weekend instead of till 9 p.m. on Fridays. Dad was determined to have us move out by next year. In the meantime, I'll stay with my grandparents over the weekends. They need help around their house, and we want to spend the least amount of time in our house. We went to sleep in the early hours of the morning, or at least I tried to. I kept hearing the squeak of a wood screw slowly turning. I was startled awake by the sound of a wood screw falling from a height and hitting the hardwood strip just before my bedroom carpet. End entry. April 1990. Aside from the annoying whispers to enter the closet or the basement, the loud thumps and sets of 3 thuds, things have been going well, but anytime I don't see that things are going well. First off, I've been accepted into a state-run vocational high school. Also, I'm trying something new. Well, new to me. I'm trying to come out of my shell more. I'm hoping that a more positive mindset might help keep the thing away. So yes, things are going well. In fact, over the past several months, after a slimmed down holiday season and a bit of luck, we might be moving. The prospect of moving was slow going at first, but my parents and I stayed positive. And then it happened. My parents got lucky and hit the lottery. Not the jackpot, but enough that after taxes, they now have enough money to do a down payment and reduce the amount of time needed to be borrowed. This nightmare could finally be coming to an end. The light at the end of the tunnel. There are 3 solid knocks on my new, since the storm, closet door. This seems to happen more and more to remind me not to get too happy. So I gave the door the finger. I'm not letting this place take this joy from me. June 1990. My parents are assholes. Well, only in the sense that they pranked me good. It's the last day of school and I had just gotten home. All my stuff was gone. All my parents' stuff was gone. I went to the phone to call them at work. No dial tone. I went to the living room. No TV. I tried to turn on the lights. No power. The thought that someone broke in again was quickly put aside when I heard laughing from the sunroom. My parents just pop up from the sunroom and honestly scared the hell out of me and tell me to get my stuff and that we are going for a ride. We head down the stairs and Mum and Dad head outside. As I reach the front door, I hear the hallway door behind and above me open and then slam closed. And what to me sounds like heels moving quickly on the stairs. I exit and close and lock the front door. We drove to another town and pull up in front of a blue-sided raised ranch off a back road. We go inside and it felt like what home should feel like. I spotted my grandfather's plaque over the door, and that's when I knew this was our home. I found my bed. There was an AC unit in the wall, but under my room's window, holy crap, I'm not going to swelter this summer. This town is closer to the vocational school I was just accepted into, and the yard was definitely big enough for a dog. My father tells me that we will no longer be sleeping in our old place. Years of stress just washed away. First night in our new home. Mum is sound asleep. Dad and I are on the back deck, going over how tomorrow we get the rest of the furniture. We will need to be extra careful not to take anything from the old place that we found in it when we moved in. Sometimes I think Dad forgets I was 3 when we moved in. Early the next morning. I awoke early with that initial panic of where am I filling me. Remembering the new house, I got up and walked around. I went past my parents' room, past the bathroom, into the kitchen and dining room, into the large common room. Home. I went downstairs into the basement. I was actually in a basement in the middle of the night. I turned on the lights and noticed my father had moved all his tools and fishing stuff. I realized that they must have been doing this all week long as I was finishing school. We had to the end of the month to move our belongings, and we did with my uncle's help. He would meet us at the old place and help us move the larger items like tables and chairs. We left some of our older furniture to keep the place usable for my uncle. There had been talk about bringing his adult kids to fill the apartment as they were getting on in years. My uncle would crack jokes like, "Anything in the basement or closet you want to take?" A good laugh was had, but a nervous laugh. The closet door knocked loudly 3 times. It had to have the final say on our last day. And with that, we finished up and left, giving the keys to my uncle. Night. Home. both my father and I had trouble sleeping, as we were concerned that my uncle being so glib might have caused problems and provoked the entity. We both found ourselves looking out over the backyard. Muggy July night, some fog covering the grass. We were both watching something large move around the edge of the property, carefully. It never crossed the property line. Thinking it was a large animal. Go, you don't belong here. You have no power here, I found myself muttering over and over again. My father pointed out that it looked like a bull, pointed out horns, and then it was gone. July 1990. Nothing. Just peace and calm. I got the lawnmower out of the basement today, cut the grass, cleaned it up, put it away. No issue. We got an Australian shepherd puppy. She's running around her dog run and digging a hole by the tree to nap in. I think this will likely be my goodbye entry. I think it's finally over. Yes, it's finally over. To anyone that ever finds this, this is the honest account of life in that house. May you never see what I saw that night in August of 1989. Peaceful dreams. August 1990. I had hoped to never write in this journal again, but 1 year to the day that we saw the entity, here I am. No, it's not our new home, as I've kept this up for so long, and he meant so much to me. It's only fitting to enter this here. We received a call from my grandfather. My aunt from our old place had gone away on a trip. When she returned, she couldn't find my uncle. She saw the basement door was open and saw his body crumpled on the stairs. She called the police and rescue, but my uncle had a massive heart attack, and this triggered a fall. The fall created any number of life-threatening injuries. They pronounced at the scene, "My uncle has fallen. He's gone." My father and I feel horrible. We got away, but the devil was paid his due. End journal. Epilogue, Part 1. Conversation with my father. August 2010. First day of hospice care. I'm visiting my father. The doctors have said without any more treatments, he has 3 months. Stage 4 cancer, riddled throughout his body. My father made the hard choices so we didn't have to. He's refusing treatment and signed a DNR because the tumors are in all major organs and inoperable. This larger-than-life man in my younger years, who stood 6 foot tall and pushed 375 pounds for most of my childhood, was now gaunt and about 110 pounds. When I was a kid, he could easily hoist me in the air with one arm. Now, I was able to lift him with one arm. I bring my daughter over to visit as often as I can. She knows Grandpa is sick. They watch Thomas the Tank Engine together. My father watches it even without her, to keep up with the plot twists. His quote. One afternoon my daughter went down for a nap after playing with Grandpa and watching Thomas. It was then my father decided to show me a Ghost Hunters series he started recording on TiVo. We watch a couple of episodes, and then he decides it's time to talk. Our conversation went like this.
Not like our old apartment, huh?
No, nothing like that.
Too bad these guys weren't around then. That would have scared the pimples off their ass. We just had those two from Connecticut, Ed and Rose.
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, those two, yeah. They did assemblies when I was in school. Only ones I wouldn't ditch on. So, you know it was an old funeral parlor, right?
What was? Our old apartment?
Oh yeah. The basement was the embalming room. Uncle's floor was for viewings. And our floor was the funeral director's living space. That closet of yours was a lift to get the bodies up and down. You never worked that one out?
No.
kind of explains a lot. Oh yeah, creepy shit started happening weeks after we moved in. Minor stuff, windows opening, doors banging. But when you got older, you started talking to an old man who wasn't there. Dad, what the fuck? Go through the old picture albums you got from Mum. I think there is a few we took of you with a white mist in the background or around you. Ah, I thought that was cigarette smoke. Nope, we were too poor to move. My parents couldn't take us. And well, your mum's mother? As for me, I would rather naked wrestle a horny porcupine and swim in a pool of Purell than live with that woman. Thanks for the visual, Dad. You're welcome, boy. So the apartment was all we had. You used to talk about the adventure the old man said you would have and the treasure you would find in the cave. Okay, I don't recall that. You were just a little shit then. Now, you're a big shit. Shut up and listen. The cave was your name for the area under the stairwell in the basement. You know the one. Wait, I hated that room. Yeah, that's because that was the first time you ever saw the shadow. What was Uncle Jay's word for it? Demon. It's old Gaelic for demon. Nerd. Yeah, Uncle Jay enjoyed teaching you the old language. Anyway, from that point on it was head up under the blankets, monsters in the closet. You stopped talking to the old man and thought he wanted to hurt you. You're creeping me out now. Yeah, well, it got worse. The treasure you spoke of was the safe that was built into the foundation. Uncle Jay did some checking into the background of the funeral guy. Not a good man. 5th generation arsehat businessman, and a convicted conman to boot. He was known for slipping valuables into the safe from the deceased. His partner, incidentally, was the one who set up the room in the attic and got the pool table up there. He notified the authorities when he learned of it. Dad, why did Uncle Jay buy this place? Dirt cheap real estate, boy. Our Uncle Jay never believed this stuff till after we moved in, and the activity increased. Anyway, after things started happening, Uncle Jay went into the basement where he stashed a trunk of odds and ends he found in the house. And in the trunk was a set of old ledgers where the last entry in it was, "I'm done. The rat bastard turned me in. Family legacy gone to shit. May the devil take him and everyone that comes to this house after us." That night, according to Uncle Jay, both the director and the partner vanished. House went to some nephew who renovated it. Set on the market for a while. Aunt and uncle snapped it up cheap. When Aunt G's friend heard it was a funeral home, she was all gung-ho to have those communications parties and bring in those Miss Chloe psychics. Got to the point where Uncle Jay had a priest come bless the house. Things quietened down for a while. Then the break-in. The doors and thresholds were damaged. The blessing was vacated, and it came back, seething mad. Go on. Do you mean you never wondered why we had your grandmother get you from school instead of coming home? Why we worked all those weekends and you stayed at your grandparents'? It wasn't until you were older where it just wasn't feasible to have your grandparents watch you after school. That's when you really started to notice things. No, Dad, I never worked it out. Just thought you were saving money in that. What did it look like to you? To me, it was shrouded, had 3 eyes, hands like hawk talons. Big, 3 eyes, long horns pointing forward, clawed hands. Darker than the dark around it. After that night in the storm, we were leaving, come hell or high water. Got lucky, got the cash for the payment, got out. Your mum had a priest bless the house. Pa, grandfather, carved and buried the 4 stones. You know, I would see the damn bull shadow in the trees outside our property sometimes. The first night we saw it together, then it took Uncle Jay. You know that, right? I believe it took him from us. Saw it again the night you moved out. Over the nights leading up to your mum passing. The day we put the dog down. And now I see it. Like It wants me to know it was waiting for me. My dad's meds kicked in, and it was lights out on Painkiller Express. Another one of his quotes. End of part 1. Notes. My father passed 1 month later. We never spoke of the encounter again. Pictures. I looked through the pictures I still have to see if I have any of the house, the rooms, or the mist. Nothing stood out, but I definitely remember seeing the mist, thinking it was just cigarette smoke. A lot of those albums got ruined in the floods we had several years ago. I'll have another good look when we do our annual deep cleaning. Old man. I do not remember an imaginary friend. This was new news to me. 4 stones. An old clan ritual using 4 stones from Erin that are carved with Celtic knots for protection, prosperity, peace, and passion, and buried in the 4 corners of the property. Epilogue, Part 2. Conversation with my cousin. August 2010. The last time I saw my extended family was at my father's memorial, or, if you will, an Irish funeral. A send-off of booze, food, stories and accomplishments of the deceased. Part memorial, part comedy roast. There you have it. It's there I reconnect with my cousins. Let's jump forward several months. March 2011. Have you ever felt like your past was on a collision course with your present, and while you are waiting for the thunderous boom as the two meet, instead it's a simple electronic ringing of a cell phone that heralds the reunion? Phone rings. I see the contact info. Hello? Hey, it's Cousin One. Listen, I wanted to ask you something, but, it wasn't right last time we all met. Sure, what's up? So, my brother and I inherited the old place you used to live at. Yeesh. You've had weird things happen, and now you want to know if I've ever experienced anything like it while I was living there? Dude, yeah. Yes. Everything from noises to smells. Banging doors, cabinets opening and closing, toys turning on, lights flickering, temperature differences. My dad and I even saw it once. Really? Yes, there's something dark there. Now, before you go any further, let me get some paper. Okay, now, are you aware of the house's history? I'm going to put you on my speakerphone so my brother can join in. How's it going? Not bad. So you guys know the house was a funeral home? No. Yeah, Dad told me. Owned by a real crook. Stole from the deceased. It's at this point I tell them everything I know about the house's past. Stunned silence. Everyone said we shouldn't live there. Just sell it. But we thought it'd be good to keep it in the family. I've got the first floor, brother's got the second. My girlfriend and our kid are with me on the second. Cousin 2, if you got your kid in the backmost bedroom, that used to be my room, and if I were you, I would change it. That closet. It uses that closet. It tormented me for years with that damn closet. Yeah, we found it open several mornings in a row, and sometimes at night I can hear my kid talking. I asked him this morning who he talks to, and he said the old man that lives in the closet. We switched rooms, but it still keeps opening, and it's like being watched all the time. My father told me I saw an old man when I was a kid. He was trying to get me to go to the basement. Yeah, nope. We don't keep anything in the basement, not after the movers got hurt. What happened? We hired some guys to move everything out of the attic and basement. Attic was fine, but guys had a hell of a time in the basement. One guy fell down the stairs. One guy, trying to get that safe moved, had it fall on his leg. That crew quit over the basement, so we hired another crew. Dude, one guy lost 2 fingers trying to move that safe. He swears something bit them off. It's the only thing remaining in the basement. Some friends and family wanted some of the things in the house. Anyone that took anything returned it within a week. Said it made their house feel creepy. Has anyone seen it? Seen what? I explained the entity as I remembered it. No way. Yes,
Look, it seems to build and build, then does something really frightening. Then takes time to savor the chaos it's created. Then it starts up again. Honestly, don't screw around with it. It can seriously screw with you. Like, you guys ever get into stupid fights? Get so angry for no reason? If so, that's what this thing feeds off. Yes. Yes, we do. How do we stop it? I don't think you can. But Dad said Uncle Jay had some luck with an Irish priest, but it was always short-lived. It seems to be bound to the house and to items in the house. When we moved, we left a bunch of stuff just to make sure. We'll try that. Okay, good luck, guys. By 2012, they will have moved out. Epilogue, Part 3. Conversation with my cousins. November 2011. Cousin 1 calls me and tells me that they have moved out, and why. I'm obviously on speakerphone. Here is how the conversation goes. Man, we really screwed up. We had to move. We are going to put that place up and never look back. What happened? My brother had a priest from his church visit and bless each room of the house, upstairs and downstairs. They said that they would need to do this a few times. After about a month, the house grew calm, and we thought that it was over. It was really like a new place. I take it something changed? Yeah. Man, I really screwed up after our Halloween party. See, my brother and I threw a party. Drinking was involved. We had gotten a good buzz and had been talking about the odd stuff going on and, well, we thought it was finally gone. Dormant is more likely. You're right. It was really dumb to think it's gone. Anyway, one of our guests, this was a guy we let in on the weird things going on, and right from the start he wanted to try the Ouija board. We told him no constantly, but he would always bring it up. Goes to his car and brings out, yep, a Ouija board, and says, let's find out. Please tell me you didn't use that thing. Not in that house. I was buzzed. My brother had left the party, but 3 others stayed, and somehow we ended up sitting around this board. Lights off, candles burning, asking questions and drinking. So, using the board, we asked, is there anyone who will speak with us?
No.
No one will speak with us?
Yes.
What is your name? No response. Were you alive once?
No.
What are you?
We are.
What are you doing here tonight?
Waiting.
What are you waiting for?
Blood.
At that, a glass on the table tipped over and shattered. We jumped up and a few of the candles went out. We continued. Did you do that?
Yes.
Are you going to show us more?
No.
Are you trying to harm us? No response. What do you want?
Kill.
Have you killed before?
Yes.
What did people do to you?
Cold.
When were you called?
1908.
Why were you called?
Revenge.
Revenge on who?
Thief.
Doors began banging in the house. The sound woke me up. My girlfriend and I swapped bedrooms with our kid. The room felt uncomfortable and cold. I know I heard something in the closet. We heard the banging, but we continued. Is that you again?
We are here.
When did you come to this house?
1925.
Why stay in this house?
Sorrow.
The mourners woke you?
Hunger.
Will you ever leave?
Never.
What if we call the priest again? No response. What if we have a psychic come in?
Mad.
What if we force you to leave?
We are here.
The table felt like it lifted, so everyone stood up from the table. Someone hit the lights and they came on. We could see blood and glass on the planchette. We all had cuts from the glass on our fingers. Just then, the doors stopped slamming. The planchette on the board, untouched by anyone covered in our blood, moves to goodbye. That's when it all came on, growling and banging from the door in the living room that heads down to the basement. The lights seemed to dim and it looked like shadows were crawling out and wiggling from under the door. We started shouting. I thought you were pulling our chain a bit, but I turned on all the lights on the second floor that I could and tried to rush downstairs, but I had to stop. Stuff was coming out of the door to the basement, and it was starting to move up the stairs. It was ice cold if you stepped on it. I raced back upstairs and got my girlfriend. It had started to come out from under our bedroom closet, like a black fog. We ran and got our kid, turned to leave, and that's when we saw it, standing in the kitchen. My kid said, "Look, it's the old man." But what was in the kitchen wasn't a man. It was huge, big head, long arms, ending in clawed hands, and just as black as I've ever seen. I got my keys and we ran. We ran outside, got in the car and we were gone. Then it appeared downstairs. My friends bolted as it hurled the planchette at us. We ran from the house. What I remember next is that both outside doors slamming shut at the same time.
So everyone's unharmed?
Yes. Did it ever follow you after you left?
No, not when we moved or when I moved out on my own.
Yeah, we're done with it.
Good call. Take nothing from the house that came with it. That's what we did. The house was sold as a flipper a few months after. My research shows that they had to sit on the house and ended up losing it to the bank. It was then sold to the current owner. I understand that my cousins are providing me this information, but I believe them. The detail they both provided was far too similar to my own experience. Some parts of it I didn't tell them about. I'm also not surprised that using the Ouija board provoked it. This would be the last time that I spoke with my cousins about the house. They are alive and well, and want nothing more to do with the house or to even talk about it anymore. But my experiences do not end here. I recently got in contact with the current owner. Present day. My initial contact. I reached out via snail mail to the current owners of the house. Here is the letter. Hello, this will likely be the most bizarre note you will receive. When I was a kid, I grew up on the second floor of this house. I've included a printout of the layout of the second floor. The house was once a funeral home, and I'm writing because I have been sharing my experiences with strangers, and it's really awoken in my sense of responsibility about this house. I'll be blunt. This house has a dark entity in it. I know this will sound crazy, but I've seen it. I lived in terror of it for years. I was terrorized by it, physically assaulted, and I believe it went as far as to oppress my family. The basement is unnerving. Have any children started to have an imaginary friend, the old man? Here's an email address where you can respond if you want. Please forgive the lack of identification or return address, but I've learned to be weary of anything physically coming from the house. A few days later, the email address gets a hit. Current owners. OP, you're not crazy. We have seen it too. Your letter arrived and I admit, my partner and I were very skeptical, but you captured the layout of the upper floor perfectly. It's odd that we actually took comfort from knowing we are not going crazy. We moved in about 8 or 9 months ago. The house was undervalued for its size, so we thought we got a good deal. Being non-essential workers, we are both quarantined at home, and it feels like something is drawing on the fear and uncertainty. My partner believes she has a gift, and the night after we closed on the house, she couldn't sleep. She said we made a mistake and that something was waiting for us in this new house. I was always skeptical about the paranormal, but lately I'm thinking there is more to this world. We moved in. On the first day, the home stunk of rotten eggs.
and it would go away and return. When not smelling like eggs, it was like compost. It was so strange. Our cat will hiss and growl in the middle of the night, and we will find her gaze locked on the door to the basement or some random corner. We hear the footsteps on the second floor, but no one is renting the apartment. We called the police, once convinced someone was up there. They heard the steps and started an investigation. The doors and windows were locked. No one was up there. One day, we saw a figure, a good 7 foot, taking up the whole window frame of what was your bedroom window as I was gardening. It appeared to be watching us. My partner tried to get a picture of it on her phone, but the file corrupted. You mentioned an old man. I had a long pause right there. My partner and I don't have any children, but we do have a nephew. He's been going on now about the old man that talks to him in his playroom. The room is the one directly under your old bedroom. My partner has studied Reiki and is trying to push positive energy into the home to force out the negative, but so far has had no luck. Thank you for reaching out. Can we continue to talk about this? My response: hello. Of course we can. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. The house, sadly, has seen little positive emotions to leave a positive feeling. The current time doesn't have enough positive energy either. The entity loves darker emotions, fear, anger. We had some temporary luck with blessings, but something would always embolden the entity. The entity seems to be bound to the house or land, so you can usually catch a reprieve if you need to by just going away. I recommend that when things get bad. I actually would say just get away, but I know you can't. Whatever you do, don't try to communicate with it. End post. So it's about this time that a string of very bad luck befell me. 1. A bat entered my home. No windows open, no screens missing, no entrance from the attic. No idea how it got in. 2. My coffee mug shattered in my hand at work. No stitches, just a minor burn. 3. Issues with my heart. I, like my father, uncle and grandfather, have an aortic aneurysm, and any change to my heartbeat I'm hyper aware of. 4. On a visit to the cardiologist to review the growth of the aneurysm, a car accident shut down the main road, and I found myself on an all too familiar road. I had not seen it for 30 years, but there it was, and I was stopped in front of it. My heart started beating out of sync, and my left arm burned. When I got to the cardiologist, a long red line was down my left arm. I still hate that house.
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.